Layovers, your weekly dose of aviation innovation.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is Paul Papadimitriou.
Hello everybody, this is Alex Hunter.
We'll be your pilots for this show about the news, the startups and the technologies defining the modern air travel experience. Our flight time today, 1 hour and 1 minute, and we expect an on-time arrival. Coming up on this flight, Singapore Changi goes Star Wars, the battle of travel planning apps, the best and worst US airports in 2015, who abandoned 3 747s at Kuala Lumpur Airport, the special Airbus Kinder chocolate eggs, Air India can pay for 787 spare parts, why Emirates might never join an alliance, the inaugural Qatar Airways A350 thinks the JFK runway is too short, China builds more than 30 airports whilst London can't decide on a runway. As we reach our cruising altitude, I'm going to turn off the fasten seatbelt sign for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, and let's turn on those noise-canceling headphones.
Flight 30 to Beirut. Hi, Alex.
Beirut. That's a great city.
Oh, yeah.
That's a
I was there
great
just
city.
Last week, it is. The airport is okay. I will talk
That's
about
very
it at the
generous.
end of the show. Yeah, well, it's, then again, Lebanon is a country of 4 million people. You cannot then
That's
expect to have like this massive airport, but some shortcomings. But it's pretty okay. So I was there last week. Funnily enough, while I was there, the State Department released a travel warning for Lebanon. So we had a few of the Americans that suddenly came to me and said, Paul, and I said, yeah, don't worry. So to say that to people that it's actually safer than they think, don't always read the news. I'm not saying that it's absolutely completely safe. We're not talking about being in Tokyo, but it's a pretty cool airport. And you see that in the airport, actually, because there are obviously, like in these countries, a lot of people with machine guns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Talking about that, I found something on AngelList. It's not released yet, but that could be cool. There's a startup which will be named My Travel Risk, and they are planning to do probably an app that will show you every time you decide on a destination all the potential is. I guess it will take all these informations from the State Department, from the government in the UK, and all of the governments, and tell you, is it a safe place to go or not? And I think it's pretty interesting that someone does that.
It is a good idea. I think when I'm going to places that are considered reasonably sketchy, they can't always be 100% sure. Or if you just don't know, a lot about the place, I check the State Department. I check the UK government site just for kind of common sense, like don't go to this neighborhood or things like that. A lot of it is very CYA, but it's actually not too bad. It's not a bad idea to have. So consolidating it into a single app is a good idea.
Yeah, I think it's a good. I mean, we'll see how the execution flows and how it works, because of course it's impossible to know at this point. But I think it's a good idea instead of having to do that all the time ourselves. Prior to going to Beirut, I was actually in Singapore for a very, very short while. Always a great city, of course, always an amazing airport.
Yeah.
Although Emirates, which is the carrier I flew on, was in Terminal 1, which is arguably the oldest, thus not the fanciest of them all. But the cool thing is, we're recording today on December the 16th on Wednesday, and in about 12 hours, I'm going to see Star Wars. The good thing, very cool thing, it was at the airport on Terminal 2 and Terminal 3, which you can walk to from Terminal 1, and between there's also a SkyTrain. They had a real-life TIE fighter and a real-life X-Wing fighter.
Well, that's so cool.
They've done an entire branding of the airport to Star Wars that runs until January 7th, I think. I'll put the link in the show notes. You have, on top of these two items, you also have a lot of things for kids as well, and a lot of
if any airport was going to do it, it was going to be them.
Yeah, it's really, and the website is really, really well done as well. You can discover a lot of the events they're doing around Star Wars. I'm sure since it's about to be released, there'll be something as well tomorrow or today, because by the time we're recording, maybe actually the premiere is happening right now in Singapore. I know that in Tokyo, some friends are currently watching it, actually.
Oh, wow.
Bastards. So I'll talk a little bit about my flights with Emirates, but I want to listen to you because you actually ended up flying that 767 of BA that we were talking about, right?
I did. I did 2 flights since our 2 trips since our last conversation. I went to Dubai on Emirates, and that was my first flight on Emirates in 20 years. And geez, that's a well-oiled machine, isn't it? Holy cow.
Yeah.
The physical product, the soft product is, I think, hit and miss when you have an airline that size, but man, those planes are really, really solid. The product is very, very good. But yes, I flew to Istanbul on BA 767. Why is this interesting? Well, the plane I flew back on was 26 and a half years old.
Oh, wow.
26 and a half years old. And I think that the crew that were manning it, at least in the cabin, have been flying it since day one. But I have to say, like the physical product, they compete with Turkish on that route. And Turkish, if you get in one of their wide body planes, as you have experienced recently, Paul, it's top notch. Not a 26-year-old plane isn't going to compete with that. But the service on both legs was so good. And the calling you by name and the food and drink was really, really good. There's obviously they played movies on the drop down LCD screens, but come on, it's not 1986. But the service was I have to give it to BA. What they don't have in physical product, they certainly make up in soft product.
Yeah, I agree. It was also a very memorable experience to me. So I would consider flying them again on that, on the 767 before they actually being phased out, because they will be phased out I think
2018, they're going to keep those things rolling, and they're going to be replaced with A320s. So it's like, I think I'd rather be on a wide body 767, frankly.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Although the A320 is taking all over the routes in Europe, we're only seeing that. It's, I mentioned last week, the last episode, I mentioned Jet Lovers, which aggregates all your type of planes, aircraft you've taken. And I see the A320 is probably the plane I've taken the most in my life.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. It's a good airplane, but I just don't think it's not going to have that same level of
character.
And I don't think that the crew have the galley facilities as well to do those same kinds of meals either.
Yeah,
two choices of food, and I was impressed.
So since we're going to the Middle East, to Beirut on this current flight, and that we both flown there, we're going to start with a few news about that region. And first of all, we said in our last episode that Al Baker, so Qatar, was about to make an historic announcement for the air travel in the US. What was it?
It was like we thought. It was a total non-event. It was as we thought it might be. It was the A350 coming to the U.S. and that was about it. But what really made the headlines from this announcement was the CEO of Qatar Airways, Akbar Al Bakr, just going basically nuts on Richard Anderson, the CEO of Delta, and he just kind of gave this huge "come at me, bro" speech and said about Anderson, let him come face to face with me in any forum. I will hang him on a wall. That is nothing short. That's not professional in any capacity, but that's like, wow.
He's quite the character. Of course it's not professional, and of course it's very borderline, but to be honest, for us outsiders, it's very entertaining to see what he comes up with.
And I think he accused Delta and other American airlines of swindling the American public, and it was just such a weird rant. That's the only word to describe it. But so it totally overshadowed this whole A350 thing, which really in itself is just not news at all. But we certainly have not heard the end of this.
And then there was a funny bit to kind of, you must have made them cringe. Of course, that A350 flight at the time of taking off from JFK had an issue.
Had a software issue, it seems like. So it was on its takeoff run, and it just ground to a halt because, from what I understand, the software that's supposed to be state of the art, and it sounds like it is, thought the runway was too short, so it automatically slammed on the brakes. And then they were like, this isn't a problem they'd have to deal with much because it's a brand new airplane. So they had to kind of figure out how the hell to override it and go, no, it's definitely long enough because this is a charter flight and there's not many people on it. But
plus, it's unlucky that's what I'm saying. It could have made Al Baker cringe because that flight was filled with media. They were all flying. Most of them were flying in business class. All of them had their cameras on the, so the new Airbus have these the outside cameras, and on top of having the cameras in front and below, they also have a camera on the tail, which is a great thing. If you ever fly an Airbus, one of the newer ones, the A380, the A350, you can actually select that view when you take off or when you land. It's amazing to see the plane because you see the entire plane. You're like in a video game. But obviously, they were all filming that, and then you have plenty of videos of the plane actually sort of breaking down on the runway. It's just funny.
And the guy, the points guy, the guy who runs that blog, was on the flight, and he was saying it went from over 100 miles an hour to a complete stop in 15 seconds. And if you think an A350 is not a Ferrari, so it's going to take a heck of a lot of force to stop that thing. So it must have been pretty violent, and it's amazing they didn't burst any tires or anything like that. But it took them a good few hours to reset and try again. And obviously it was an uneventful flight home.
So do you think the A350 software is smarter than pilots then?
I don't think so. I think it's hard to beat a pilot's instinct. So I think that's maybe that's a little bit of karma coming back to get the loudmouth CEO of Qatar Airways.
It's possible. So Emirates, I flew Emirates to multiple legs. I just told you I went to Singapore first, through Dubai, obviously, and then back to Dubai. I stayed in Dubai for work, and then I went to Beirut, stayed a week for work as well, and then back to Dubai, back here, which actually doesn't make sense. I know it doesn't make sense from Beirut to London to go to Dubai, but again, when you have Emirates has this thing that all these carriers that do point and, these hub and spoke model have, is that they don't penalize you for having these basically multiple up and jaws. So you end up actually wanted to do that, even if it takes plus. I mean, let's be honest, you and me, we're never going to complain about a few more hours in a plane. So
no, especially when it's someone like Emirates.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, the interesting bit though, I flew the A330 on my way from Dubai to Beirut, and that's a plane that is being phased out. Most of their planes now are 777s, A380s, and it's interesting because it was clearly one of the first versions probably of their A330. I say that because I was in business class, which is a very normal business class. It's a very good business class, but it's not a full of lie flat like on 777s, which is slightly angled, or no, the A380. But I could see in front the first cabin is totally different from what we now see in all the brochures and online pictures. So it was interesting to fly an older version of it. It's still a very good product. As I told you as well in the last episode, you could see that, although the content of the IFE is the same, the UI was obviously much older. Yeah. There was no touch screen. It was harder to get used. So they were implementing. How did you like so you were now able to test the IFE that I've been talking about?
Yeah, the depth of content is extraordinary. I think the UI, I think sometimes airlines or IFE developers try a little bit too hard with the UI gimmicks. And so when you're trying to navigate through the movies, it does kind of stick, and you just keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Someone's going to crack that and figure out that you don't have to be totally, crazy when it comes to UI design. But man, what did they say? 1,500 channels, and they would take you a year to watch all of their content or something crazy like that. And I could see it. I mean, plus the 3 cameras, of course,
Yeah.
Then straight down from the nose wheel and from the top of the tail. It's pretty extraordinary.
And there was another this time interview of Sir Tim Clark on the main channel. So it's kind of a podcast like we do. It was pretty interesting to listen to. I'll try to find the link. They sometimes post them online on their website, so I'll try to post the link. It's for those interested about the strategy of Emirates. It's pretty interesting. And talking about strategy, one thing that I was thinking about when I was flying, and I told you before we recorded today, I don't think that Emirates will ever join an alliance, because when you think about it, not only, of course, they don't especially need to because they're so big and they have all these routes already. They don't have as many destinations as Turkish, for instance, but they probably know that. And I had these discussions. So I met Gen Kanai. We keep talking about him. He was in Beirut at a conference I was at as well. And he said, yeah, but Paul, at some point, maybe some other airline will start investing as much money. I mean, already we've seen Qatar and Etihad do it, but maybe there will be, I don't know, someone from China, and I said, why not maybe Bahrain with Gulf Air? Why not others? And the thought came to me that, you know what, they know that these guys are their tails at some point. So by they launching all those routes, they lock people like you and me in. We cannot transfer our miles, so we kept coming back to them. And then by the time, if anyone else comes and tries to disrupt them, they'll have the largest network. They'll have people locked in like you and me, locked in a certain way, of course. And that's why they're not joining alliance.
And the best airport in the world, or best soon to be 2 airports in the world for doing transits.
Yeah, so it actually makes sense. I was actually, by the way, I was able to try. So I went out in Dubai. I don't know if you had that, and I had registered to the e-gates, so I could go out from immigration extremely, extremely fast. I mean, I just scanned my thing and went on. It's really, I think it's open for 27, 28 countries. You can do that very quickly and register your passport if you fly there. The other thing that happened to me is that they made a mistake the first time. They made a mistake with my miles. When I came back, I realized there are some miles missing. So I didn't use Twitter as you would have done. I simply used their online form. This is where you and me were a bit, for some reason, the fact that they missed those miles made my status remain at a lower level when I was flying, which of course, otherwise I would have been a higher level, which I mean, you have had more boost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, they were okay. They manually, you can see on the entry, they manually corrected my miles. So, I mean, at the end, I probably lost some boost or something, but that's okay. I mean, but you were telling me that, do they do that on purpose?
Yeah, it happens too often. I know we fly complicated segments, but come on, this happens too often where it's like, oh no, something's gone wrong. You're going to have to call us.
So, I just mentioned that I flew the A330. The news is in, actually. So Emirates will retire some of its ancient fleet. So that includes the A330 and the A340, 300, the older ones. So probably the one I took will be retired. And they will be replaced by 777s, A380s, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like they're just consolidating and standardizing their fleet, which is very sensible. I mean, like you say, they're getting rid of 26 airplanes in 2016. They have 262 planes on order. So they're just
including the new 777, the 9X, right?
And the 8X. 115 of those. So they're just, they'll be an exclusively A380 777 carrier next year.
Yeah.
But what's interesting? I think you and I were talking about this. Qatar have a fleet of narrow body planes that they use for regional flights. So when I was looking to come to Beirut, and unfortunately I had to cancel that trip, from Istanbul to Doha to Beirut was all on A320s.
Oh, wow.
And they have a pretty big fleet of those, as does Etihad. Emirates do not. Emirates is all wide body, and I wonder. I mean, it looks like that's not going to change at all. But the economics seem to work out for them, where they can do a 2-hour flight or even less, and fill a 777.
Well, they say that part of the reason they want to retire these ancient aircraft is because of fuel efficiency. But it's true that I was surprised. I mean, on the way back from Beirut to Dubai. So for those who don't know, it's about a 4 hours trip. So it's a short to medium haul route. I was flying a 777-200, and I was like, will they be able to fill that plane? And it was full.
Wow, that's full. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah, so meaning they really do have, actually people, flying them. It's I couldn't check in every single aircraft I've taken if it was full, but it seems to be, it's crazy. You fly from Dubai to Singapore, return, and you have so many flights per day. I'm like, it can't be true. It can't be all filled, but it seems to be. So
pretty amazing.
But you found something also related to Emirates that apparently Malaysian that we've been talking about has done some kind of deal with.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you. I can't see Emirates having any value in joining a alliance, but they are doing quite a lot of strategic alliances with airlines, and this latest one is with Malaysian. So the structure of the deal is that you can book a flight from KL to London, Paris, Frankfurt, all these places in Europe, and you would go via Dubai and get on an Emirates plane from there. So the benefit to Malaysian is that they can get rid of a bunch of their loss-making European routes, cut back on a number of wide bodies they have, and let Emirates pick up the slack. The obvious benefit for Emirates is that they get a bunch of feeder traffic to their network out of their super hub in Dubai. Emirates have a similar relationship with JetBlue in the US, funneling out of New York. And I think that will grow and grow and grow in the next 5 years.
Yeah, that's a blueprint. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's also similar with Qantas. Qantas is doing, because interestingly, both Qatar and Qantas are part of Wine World.
Yeah.
At least, so you see, it's interesting how they do these agreements, even though they're already part of an alliance. I don't know how it works for miles and can you accrue Skywards miles, which is the Emirates program or not. But it's interesting how Emirates has this kind of halo effect with other companies.
Yeah,
like, you know what?
It's very sensible. I think this is a further layer of insulation they have against, any economic downturn or any competition. It's very sensible.
The third of these three Middle Eastern carriers we always talk about is obviously Etihad. They just won the world's leading airline award for a 7th consecutive year. I mean, probably they deserve it because the hard product is actually really good. I'm not sure it makes sense economically, but actually, it's true that it's a great product. Have you flown them at all?
Never. I might in the spring, but I'm looking forward to trying them.
There was also some comments. I mean, so not Al Baker style from Qatar, but the CEO of Etihad also downplayed a lot of what the complaints from the US carriers. There's an interview. It's on skift.com. I'll put the link in the show notes. And he basically kind of downplays it. Guys, you know what? In the long term, this is what we're here for, not for the petty games. We'll win that game. So he's not as, emphatic as Al Baker, but he basically says the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he's a little bit more measured.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Measured is the right term. And finally, if you guys are flying Etihad, apparently they just opened a new lounge at JFK. So if you fly from the US, from the pictures, it looks really nice. To be honest, sometimes I'm a bit jaded is maybe not the right term, but I mean, I find that Emirates lounges are fantastic, but they could be a bit more modern. They all look very standard. So by standard, I mean they're all the same in every airport in the world. They have the same kind of sofas. It's very consistent.
Singapore Airlines do the same thing.
Yeah, but they could do for us. I mean, we know, and Sir Tim Clark mentioned that in the podcast that was in Flight Entertainment. They are preparing the new product. The hard product is coming up, so there will be something soon enough. Probably also for of course, the first class business and all the seats and etc. But also maybe for the lounges themselves.
Yeah.
Talking about crazy thing, and maybe only one of those three airlines could do it. There's this new, I don't know if it's not even a patent, it's maybe just a project about a new fancy seat that is just out of this world. I mean, this is lunacy, right?
Yeah, we can file this in our things that will never happen section of the show. This company called Windspeed, who are an aerospace engineering company, have mocked up, it's not even prototyped, something they're calling a sky deck, which is 2 seats that can be lifted up into a glass dome at the top of the airplane. So you can sit up, you kind of sit in the seats and they lift up on hydraulics into this glass dome and you can look around. Don't get me wrong, this would be incredible, but it's never going to happen in a million years. So I like looking at the animations and going, oh, maybe somebody will be crazy enough to do that, but it's just not going to happen.
Talking about stuff that's not going to happen, there was an article that made the rounds probably a few weeks ago. We were planning to talk about it in the last episode, we didn't have time, where it's titled, Here's What Makes Flying Suck and How Designers Would Fix It. And honestly, it's one of the things you're like, guys, have you ever flown or have you ever thought about, the economics of air travel? So for instance, there's this guy who says, I'd upgrade the airplane interior to include a separated meditation or yoga area. And he would replace the carpet with tatami mats. There will be some kind of scents as well. What?
I know these articles drive me crazy because they're so presumptuous. They're like here's what makes flying suck and how designers would fix it. It's so misleading. It's these are the things that irritate the 1%, who are far up their own rear ends. Yeah, it's mass. It's just they're just the most infuriating things in the entire world to read because they show no understanding of how airlines work, of how aircraft design works.
Well, yeah, and they don't also think about not only the economics. I mean, putting a yoga area. I mean, but then again, some might argue that there's a lounge, bar in Emirates. But I mean, these are like exceptions. This other person talks about something very more simple. It said all the tray tables should be, disposable. So basically, when we enter the plane, we should just take a tray table and carry our own tray table to our seat. What the hell?
Can you imagine the nightmare scenario that would cause? Like, it would be like going through a cafeteria and you grab your own tray and then you have to click it in. It's just so Silicon Valley, this article. It's in Wired, so it's appropriate. And it's embarrassing to read how bad these ideas are.
I will put the link, browse through it. Honestly, it's almost none of these things make sense. But of course, then people, tweet and Facebook and etc. because, that would be so great. But I don't think they've ever realize how the economics of air travel work, because it just doesn't.
The top comment on this is, this article is a joke, right? This is the famous Thanksgiving Day joke, because you really had me for a moment. And I think that that's kind of how we all felt.
I'm going to say the only one that makes sense, the last one is a guy called Raymond Bessemer. He says something about, having to decide, for instance, at what time the food could be delivered. I'm not saying that it could happen. I'm saying this is something that is more reasonable. We see that some companies in premium allow you to choose the time. We see, for instance, low cost, EasyJet, just you basically, you buy your sandwich whenever you want to buy your sandwich, if you want to buy a sandwich. So maybe that's the only reasonable thing. The rest is honestly just nonsense. Talking about nonsense, but a good nonsense, I loved it. You actually sent me a picture of, because everybody talks Star Wars these days. It seems that the whole world is branded Star Wars nowadays. But you found an exception, and what a nice exception. You bought a Kinder. The egg.
This is in Istanbul. I was looking for some things to bring my sons back, and my youngest son, who's 2.5, is the biggest airplane aficionado I've ever met. Like, he can
with a father like you.
Yeah, it's kind of an inevitability, right? But he, his ability to, he can identify different airliners, and he can, he's amazing. And I wanted to get him something plane related. And weirdly, at Istanbul Airport, there's no way to get anything Turkish Airlines related, which I thought was weird. But anyway, there is this airport exclusive Kinder thing, which is 5 Kinder eggs, and they've teamed up with Airbus, and inside each of the eggs is an A330 model with, I think it's Asiana, Turkish, SAS, a Kinder livery one, and an Airbus House Colors one. And they're really like high quality. I was amazed how because usually the stuff that comes out of those is pretty good crap, but they were really, really well done. And I thought it was cool. Of course, my son's just absolutely loves it. So what a neat little partnership. Idea. And you can only get it at airports. So next time you're transiting through any major airport, have a look for them, because they're really neat, and they'll make the airline enthusiasts in your life very happy at Christmas.
So I'll be on the lookout at Heathrow. I'm flying to Geneva.
There you go. Yeah, I'm sure they'll have it. I'm sure they'll have it. I
want one of those. I mean, I'm not 2-year-old, but I still want one of those. Even though the entire collection or something, So I'm not going to do a full review, but during this trip I've taken, I said to myself, we always talk about TripIt, and we keep using TripIt as our main application for travel planning because it works really well. And I said, but there are others in the market, so I'm going to give them a shot. So I tried many. Like too many, honestly. So I had like 25 notifications at every change or anything. But the main ones I'm going to mention were Tripcase by Sabre, WorldMate, and actually Kayak itself. I'll get to that in a minute. So all these work the same way as TripIt. You can send your email directly to the service, and it creates a route for you. You can even send your hotel details as well. This is what we call trip planning. There are many apps that do only the flight planning itself, but we're talking about something a bit more general.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've tried any of those, if you will try any of those, but TripIt has actually some work to do, because I always assumed that they were at top of their game. Especially since the acquisition by Concur, it hasn't seen a lot of iterations. The design is a bit passé.
Yeah.
It still works great. But honestly, when I look at what Tripcase, especially in WorldMate, have done, these are great apps. Have you tried any of them?
Yeah. In fact, I used Tripcase on my Dubai and my Istanbul trips, and I was really impressed because they give you some of the services, the vital services that TripIt charge you for. So, for example, Tripcase was able to tell me what gate my Emirates flight was leaving for before it even posted in the airport. Like I got a notification saying it's at gate blah. And that was a good 15 minutes before they had actually announced the gate.
So TripIt does that, but only if you pay for it.
Exactly, right. So this was free with Tripcase. And also when there was a delay that they had not announced yet, I got an email from Tripcase saying, looks like your flight's going to be delayed 30 minutes. And then 15 minutes later, they made the announcement that the flight was delayed. So that in itself is impressive. I think the Tripcase design looks a little bit, I don't know, like Microsoft Enterprise Suite 2006, but it is owned by Sabre, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, that leads me to something really interesting with it. It has live seat maps. So
Yes,
when
that's
you
super cool.
when you send a plane booking by email, it automatically creates your route, and then it tells you for each flight you can press on it to have some more information about that flight, and that includes a live seat map. So we're not talking about Seat Guru, which just tells you, okay, these are the seats and this is where you could be seated. It tells you which seats are actually free. It even tells you, because I've seen that for my forthcoming flight with Swiss, some of the seats at Swiss in the front of economy you have to pay a little bit more to get them. Otherwise, you just anywhere in economy. So they put a dollar sign on it. So it's actually really well done, because if you are someone who's trying to find a good seat, then by just looking at that map, you're like, oh, actually this seat was free. And it's actually more accurate. And that's the most amazing thing. It was, for me, more accurate than the seat maps that we're seeing on the airline website.
That's amazing, isn't it?
The downside, and I hope someone from Tripcase, I know some people from Sabre, listen, it seems that the app sometimes struggles a bit. And that's, for me, a very big downside when it's offline. These apps should be working offline without a hitch, because
That's
obviously...
true. And TripIt does work well when it's offline.
Yes. WorldMate works very well. Interestingly, both WorldMate and Tripcase, when I send so Emirates offers, if you're in premium, offers you a chauffeur service. So basically a car that takes you from home to the airport and back. And when I sent this email to all these services, TripIt was not able to recognize it. It was not able to read it. But Tripcase and WorldMate were. WorldMate also has something nice. It tells you, oh, Paul, you forgot to book a hotel for your stay. So, for instance, in Beirut, a client had paid for the hotel, so I didn't have the booking receipt, so I didn't send it. But he kept reminding me, not too much, but he just reminded me, hey, you might want to think about a hotel. So honestly, it's a very good assistant. So I will enjoy you guys to try these other ones. I'll mention quickly Kayak, because Kayak, although Kayak is most well known to use as a travel searching app, it includes such a feature as well, and it works pretty well actually. I've added also my flights there, and it works actually pretty well. There are many others, but they all had issues. Like Gate Guru, for instance, had many issues and stuff. So I will just limit yourselves to try between TripIt, Tripcase, and WorldMate, and tell us what you think, guys.
And I give these guys a lot of slack, because it's not an easy nut to crack.
Not.
So
and
they're all good, all three of them.
I agree, because I kept coming back to TripIt still, meaning either it's muscle memory or it works. But I will add that the ones that we keep talking about, it's brewing in the background, is obviously Google itself. Because Google now, if you use Google Inbox, for instance, which is their new email service, will create the trips for you, will aggregate all the right information for you. They've added even more features, like sharing the trips with someone. I could share the trip with you, Alec. And it just creates it, because since it reads your emails anyway, that's what Gmail does. Yeah. It just creates these very nicely done trips. It adds them automatically to your calendar as well. So this is a big contender, and this is free.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, when you think about it.
I mean, if anybody can crack it, that's Google.
Yeah, they have the data to do so. Back to a story that we had in our past two episodes. So we said 2 episodes ago that the Russian airliner that crashed over Egypt crashed because of a mechanical failure. Then in the previous episode, we said, oh, well, they all say it's actually a bomb. But now Egyptian authorities came back and say, nope, there's no sign of terrorism.
That's weird.
I don't know what to believe anymore.
That's
right?
exactly what I don't know what to believe. Everybody has an interest in this going one way or the other, a vested interest. And, you've got the Americans saying we're 90%, the Russians saying it is 3,000% terrorism, then the Egyptians saying it's not terrorism. So I don't know who's right. I don't know if we're ever going to know the truth, but it's so strange.
Yeah, it is. And like you said, everybody has a vested interest or political interest. Is also probably protecting tourism for the Egyptian authorities.
Yeah.
I don't know what to trust. It's true as well. If you come back a few years ago, there was this Egypt airplane that crashed, and there was always a big debate: was it a suicide or not? We talked about German wings a few months ago, and the Egyptian authorities have always repeatedly said that it was not. Was apparently all the others said it must have been. So, not that either is right or wrong, but say that there are always vested interests in this, and probably also maybe some kind of pride as well, whether it's from Airbus itself, our planes don't crash, whether it's from the Egyptian authorities, our pilots don't do mistakes, etc., etc., etc. So I don't know if we'll ever know anything.
I don't know. Yeah, that's my worry, is that we'll never know.
But apparently, Sharm el-Sheikh will reopen for flights from the UK. That's good news, right?
It is good news. Yeah, the British ambassador has made this announcement that he's been given a mandate from the British government to figure out a plan to reopen flights to the UK. It sounds like ultimately it will be up to the individual airlines to make that decision if they want to continue service. But both BA and EasyJet have said at the very least they won't start until next year, beginning of January. That's the very least. Whether they extend the restrictions has yet to be seen. So, and I know that Thomson have also said that, and Russian airlines are not going anywhere near it. So I'll be really interested to see what steps they take to actually make the traveling public feel safer about flying out of Sharm el-Sheikh, or whether this is just lip service. But yeah, this is the official government line out of the UK. Out of
the UK. Yeah, we'll see what others decide, obviously. There was another flight that got diverted from another bomb threat. I mean, that keeps going. We hope to see less and less. The reason I mentioned this one is because a friend of mine was on the flight. So there was a Air France flight from San Francisco to Paris. My friend Loic Lemeur was on it. So he sends me a message. I'm in Montreal. I'm like, what are you doing in Montreal? And apparently the flight, they got I think it was a phone call or something. And then they had to divert the flight, search the flight. Ended up in like 8 to 10 hours delay. This is not fun. So guys, stop doing it. If it's just a hoax, it's not funny.
Yeah, who does that?
Though, I guess also the authorities taking some of these stuff seriously, because you never know what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And you can't fault them for erring on the side of caution.
So Loic had made it to where he was supposed to be. I actually also met him in Beirut in the end. Another type of problem, this is more serious though. We sadly keep mentioning India as having a problematic air travel industry. And there's one more sign now that you found it is actually pretty staggering.
Yeah, I don't understand how this even happens, but Air India has grounded a bunch of its 787, and it's been given a $4.5 billion taxpayer-funded bailout, and it still can't pay for spare parts to get those 787s back in the air. So basically, and this is like the long-running joke on airliners.net, that they've grounded 2 787s and basically parted them out to keep the other 8, or I think it's 787s in the air. And they've tried to blame it on Boeing not being able to, and the suppliers not being able to produce enough spare parts. And everybody's like, do you know how many airlines operate 787s and have not had to do what you're doing? There's something not right here.
Absolutely, yeah.
And there's something, not nefarious isn't the right word, but perhaps a little bit suspicious going on here.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I hope that at some point we'll get some better news out of India. I mean, we had Indigo, which is a very good news, but it seems that the traditional airline industry is suffering a lot in that country.
I don't know what's going on. I think I don't know if I would feel comfortable flying on Air India at the moment. It sounds like they're going through a really tough time.
Talking about another country that we sometimes criticize for the air travel industry is the US. Sorry, guys. But there are actually some good news here, because it seems that the on-time arrivals and departures of planes was better in 2015 than it was in 2014, so it's getting better.
Yep.
The best ratings are from Delta, surprisingly, to be honest, Hawaiian, and Alaska. And I think that Spirit is the one that is suffering the most. So it's good news, because we keep thinking that, Is it going worse and worse in the US? Actually, it's not. So, it's
good.
It's a good sign. Still in that topic, there's this usual kind of rankings that arrive at the end of the year by Travel Math. It talks about what are the best and worst airports in the US. They take into account a lot of stuff from, of course, the on-time arrival and departures we just mentioned, but other type of amenities and stuff you see in airports. I'm so happy for you, Alex, because the worst airport in the US is Newark, the one where you actually said it was probably the worst in the Western world last episode.
322nd out of 322. It's so that's right. That sounds about right.
Sadly for New York, actually, just above Newark is LaGuardia, and not very far is Kennedy. So really, the three airports in New York suffer a lot.
Yeah.
Washington D.C., Chicago also have a very bad recommendations. It's true that they mix up small and big airports. If you look at the total ranking, only small airports obviously make it to the best because, of course, when you're a small airport, you have better chances of having on-time delivery and less crowding problem, et cetera, et cetera. So you have the first one. I'm just going to mention it. I've never been to it. Canyonlands Field in Utah.
Yeah, I'm sure that has one scheduled flight a month. And it's not really fair, is it? But I think
they do later on they separate still some kind of airports according to their size. And interestingly, I think the two airports that come out as major airports that come out on top close to the top are Atlanta and Seattle.
I haven't been I have been to Seattle recently. It's a good functional airport. Atlanta I've been through. It's purely a functional airport, but it seems to work. I think when an airline has a hub at an airport, they invest a lot of their own time and energy and money, frankly, into optimizing the operation. And Atlanta, it is what it is. There's a statistic in here that is staggering to me, and that is it's buried in like a paragraph. And it says the most shocking number is the number of TSA claims filed by passengers for lost, stolen, or damaged items. JFK was number 1. Newark was number 4 in items being mysteriously, disappearing during security screenings. That's just bad.
The thing that you were really also, it shows that you really know your airports, Alex, because the one part of in the US, because I don't fly there as much as you do, but they say that the best airport for customs for immigration is Palm Beach in Florida. And the worst is actually Miami. And I'm not surprised about Miami.
No, neither am I.
Worst problem with immigration. It always takes you forever to clear.
Oh my God, damn it. Miami is bad.
You just mentioned about the TSA, but there was a ruling by the DOT just recently also that the airlines in the US have not been good at complying with the rules about lost or damaged luggage, and the DOT said, guys, the rules are the rules. You'll have to pay up now. So that's good news for customers. They won't be able to, we'll see how it's implemented, but airlines won't be able to easily escape and say, but because of this and that excuse, or delay your compensation. If you have lost your luggage, if your luggage is missing something, if your luggage is broken or anything, you can ask for compensations and they will have to pay up. And I think that's good news. Yes,
that is good.
Honestly, especially when you see stories like, I don't know if you've read that story in the Telegraph. They show a lot of videos of how some handlers are handling your luggage.
Oh, yeah, you don't want to see that. You'll never put anything in the hold again.
The game is called Toss the Bag, for instance. Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not surprised because even if it's not mischief, just, it's an operation. Do not expect that you have fragile items in the hold that will be, safe. The luggages go through a lot of tough time, but these images prove that in some airports, sadly, some people just are maybe bored to death or something, and they just play a lot with your luggages. So you don't look at the videos if you don't want to know. Otherwise, just take a look at the show notes.
Yeah, it's bad. I hope they got what they deserved.
So, Alex, I know that you are a big fan of the 747s as I am, but I didn't know that you abandoned yours in the airport in Malaysia.
I actually abandoned 3 of them. They were just I couldn't fit them in my driveway. In my house here in England. There's these 3 747-200F, so freighter models that have been sitting at Kuala Lumpur Airport for 5 years now, and they were and now the Malaysian Airport Authority has put an ad in the local paper saying, "Can you come get these things, please?" And
an ad in a paper. They don't know who they belong to.
Yeah, they really cannot figure it out because they were dumped in 2010 by Air Atlanta Icelandic, who have kind of changed the way that they don't exist anymore in that corporate entity. And then the ownership of them was transferred to a company called Changi Sunshine Cargo, which went out of business before they could ever come and get the airplanes. And so it remained a mystery until about 3 days ago when this company, a Malaysian cargo carrier called Splunk and Dash, said, "Oh, no, they're ours." And the Malaysian authorities are like, "I don't think we believe you." So these guys are like trying to like take ownership of these abandoned 747s, which haven't flown in 5 years and probably are, they're worth $13 million apparently now, all three of them, because of the engines and the aluminum which they're made out of.
Yeah,
but
the parts, yeah,
they would have gone for $380 million when they were new. So, But they, a lot of the experts have looked at them and said, no one's going to want these because they're older, inefficient engines. They're scrap. But I'll take them if you don't.
They haven't been maintained for 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. But if you need to get rid of any of them, I'll take them off your hands.
Okay, we could send a letter and say, you know what? Actually, we forgot them there last time. So sorry. We're so sorry.
Thanks for finding them.
I love how the article says it's massive clutter on the airport. Yeah, well, talk about massive clutter. My God. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we'll follow up because it will be interesting to see if they actually find someone who actually has those planes. Probably a company, went into bankruptcy or something.
I'm sure that's what it is.
Yeah, that's simply that. But I mean, the airport doesn't know what to do with them. So it's actually pretty funny. Someone who knows what to do with all 747s, and that's actually pretty smart, is Richard Branson from Virgin. So we know that Virgin Atlantic is phasing out the 747s. Instead of scrapping them, Richard Branson is planning to send them into space. Well, not exactly, right?
It's a good idea. They're taking a retired 747-400 from Virgin Atlantic, and they are moving it over to Virgin Galactic to be a airborne launch platform for satellites and small payloads. And it's really it's a good idea. It's a rare good idea from Virgin Galactic. They're going to start using it in I think a couple of years. And I've flown many, 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 many times on this particular 747. So it's so nice to see it being not retired to the desert and scrapped out, but getting a new and very cool role.
The 747 was also the one that used to carry the space shuttle in the US.
That's right.
I saw that as a kid. It was one of the best memories. So let's wish now. Let's call Richard Branson and let's ask for a ticket of that 747. Just two of us, just seeing the thing and flying and seeing that spacecraft like launching from it would be really awesome.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah, let's make it happen. Talking about 747s, we know that we are both kind of very anxious and very afraid that it might disappear because no one is ordering them. But there's no hope. There's apparently this Russian company, the cargo company, that says that you might actually buy 18 of them. And 18 of them would actually, make sure that it lives at least for 2-3 more years. Do you think it will happen, Alex?
I think the 747-8 is proving to be pretty popular with cargo operators, simply because it's the only large capacity cargo plane available. Obviously, there's no A380 version. And while a lot of the older passenger 747-400s are going to come off their passenger duties and get converted, they're still not going to be anywhere near as efficient as a 747-800. So it seems like this could breathe new life into it. I mean, obviously being cargo, we're not going to get a chance to experience it. And I don't think that there's any open orders for the passenger 8 version, the passenger version of the 8. So, but you know what? That's okay. As long as they're still being made and they're still in the sky, I'm okay.
Yeah, as long as the production line is still open, it means there's always a chance that someone will
go, you know what? Give me 65 of them.
By the way, that guy is the same who has forgotten his planes on the airport in Malaysia. His name is Alexander. But by the way, interestingly, in that story, we know there's this big spat we mentioned about the US and the Middle East, and one of the casualty of that spat was the financing. So there's the Import-Export Bank, which is a bank in the US that allows to get, if you are a foreign buyer, you get credit lines in the US. And Boeing was very much using this, of course, to sell their planes to foreign clients. And that deal we just mentioned with that Russian company is tricky because that Import-Export Bank is being blocked right now by Congress. So guys in Congress, I know there's a lot of like spats with a lot of countries in the world, but I mean, you're hurting a Boeing by not, opening these lines of credits.
You would assume that Boeing and every other heavy manufacturer in the U.S. that is dependent on exports has got enough lobbying dollars to make sure that this doesn't get blocked for too long. But the fact that it's being blocked at all is ludicrous, frankly.
It's a sad casualty of this whole lobbying thing that is happening right now. And I remember, I think the Boeing CEO, chairman, I don't remember who was it, he said that, you know what, we might actually put our operations outside the US. Yeah. I don't think it will happen, but they are really
threat.
Angry about it because it's 18 planes, and not talking about all the 777s, all the Dreamliners that are being bought. Not having this system of financing is actually really hurting Boeing, and this might be the reason why Airbus actually seems to have more orders now than Boeing, because Airbus, there's a similar system of financing in Europe. So maybe, I don't know. So guys in the US, you should wake up if you want Boeing to continue to thrive as they've done until now. Talking about travel, have you seen that guy who is an illustrator and he drone his experience of flying from New York to Berlin?
It's so good. It's like a minute by minute caricature of his entire experience, and it is so funny and so well done, and not like cynical and snarky as it could be. It's really nice. It's really well done.
Endearing, yeah. It's endearing and very true. It sounds something you've experienced yourself.
He gets all the little kind of nuanced irritations that happen when you're traveling, but does them in a very funny way. So take 5 minutes and have a look at it because it's really very good.
Giving baby girl in front row the evil eye. I don't mind that the poor thing is crying. I'm just envious of her bassinet.
Yeah, and there's this great picture of him sleeping in a kid's bassinet on strapped to the bulkhead. It's really cute.
Exactly. That's absolutely what I wished I could do every time I fly a coach. Heathrow, so let's go back a little bit to the UK. So Heathrow, we said, there's a decision that's been made by the Airport Commission, and now things should get moving, but apparently they're not moving.
No,
right?
This is bad. They promised that they were going to announce the plan for the Heathrow expansion by the end of this year. And now last week they've come out and said it's not going to happen until the summer at the earliest, which is insane. And I'm sure it's politics behind the scene. I'm sure it has a lot to do with the EU vote that's happening here in May. But businesses have just flipped out. So businesses in general have said that this is massively hindering the UK. Airline and airport infrastructure companies are saying that it's hugely. I mean, they're pulling the gloves off. They're saying some pretty aggressive things to the government. And it's
actually, the chief exec of BA's parent company, IAG, has said that basically, guys, if you don't take a decision soon, basically, if you don't make Heathrow happen, we might take our business elsewhere. And by that, they mean Ireland or Spain. I'm not saying that they will, suddenly just transfer all the planes. They still need London as a hub, but they say, you know what? If you're blocking the expansion of London as a hub, we'll
invest in their hubs in Dublin and Madrid.
And that's bad for the UK economy. It's interesting to see that, because we know that IAG was always a bit they didn't want to push the third runway too far because they were afraid basically that the government would ask them to pay for it partially. Yeah. But still, they really want it. They say, guys, make up your mind, take a decision. We need to expand. We're at capacity here. I'll put the link in the show notes. He has pretty harsh words. As you said, I think you nailed it. The gloves are off now.
They got to do something. It's getting out of hand. I mean, in the time that we've been talking about it, Dubai has built 2 airports.
Absolutely, yeah. No, it's true. And we mentioned Istanbul is building a new airport. Mexico is building a new airport. These airports are made in like 2, 3, 4 years timeline.
China's just announced they're building 52 new airports. 52, and we can't figure out.
We're talking about a run. We're talking about a
runway. Exactly. It's getting out of hand.
But to finish with the good news about the UK, for those of you like you who have, you have both passports, but you have British passports and travel to the US, global entry is finally open for British citizens.
This is so good. You don't have to fill out the customs form or any of that. You just go through the kind of global entry fast track. You pay £42 for 5 years. So it's a hell of a deal. And then you can use the automated entry kiosks. It's really, really good. I strongly recommend that you invest in this. I don't need it because I have an American passport, but
I will say this. I'm not a UK citizen yet. Maybe I'll apply because it's, I think next year I could theoretically apply. But even without it, I will commend the US Customs and Borders. I don't remember the name of the authority because it's now easier than before. I mean, the last time I was at JFK, for instance, there are now also automated machines for those who are on the ESTA waiver program, so the visa waiver program. There are selected countries in the world. You don't have to queue as much as you used to. A lot of the process is made through a machine. So it's getting better, finally. Maybe not in Miami, though.
Yeah. No, forget it.
So, Beirut, you've been there 2-3 years ago, I think?
Yes, 4 years ago, almost to the day.
So, what was your experience about that airport?
I flew in and out in the middle of the night, or what felt like the middle of the night. So it was quite a strange, deserted, dilapidated airport. But I can't, you can't fault the city. I think what's awesome about that airport is no matter whether you're taking off or landing, if you're sat on the right side of the airplane, you get the most spectacular views of Beirut.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always keep missing that because I always sit on the other side twice this time. I mean, I hate
you can't predict which way you're going to come in or take off. But yeah, it's got some great views.
So the airport, I mean, it has suffered a lot. Obviously, there's been the civil war between 75 and 90, then the airport was rebuilt. There's been also some problems in 2006. So you cannot expect to have it's not, Dubai or it's not, Singapore. But for a country of 4 million people, roughly, it's a solid airport. It's, as you say, it's not the most glamorous airport. It's not crappy either. A few things when you land, because probably most of you probably will, if you arrive there, you're not living in Beirut. When you land, the only thing that actually kind of matters is that immigration can take some time.
Yes.
So my advice would be rush as quickly as you can out of the airplane and get in line with immigration because that takes some time. Then there's no public transport link to the city. Your only ways are two. They're Uber. Obviously, it works actually really well in Beirut, or airport taxis. Airport taxis are signed. You can see the sign that they are official airport taxis. Take one of the two. You can also, of course, book private hires and ask your hotel to organize your trip if you want to. Nothing more to say that there's a duty free when you arrive, but nothing special about it. The big thing is when you come back. So when you come back, it's very close to the city. Is in the south quarters of the city. Is about, depending on traffic, and traffic in Beirut can be very unpredictable. Between 20 to 60 minutes. I averaged at 30 my 2 times last time. When you arrive, the airport is a bit of a strange layout. You get into the airport and you have to clear, not to get into the airport, but to get to the check-in counters, you have to clear a first X-ray machine. It's one that you don't have to put your computer out and everything. You just have to remove your belts and everything and just put everything on a big tray. The thing is, though, and that's a bizarre bit, if you arrive too early at the airport at that time, there are 2 security. One is called East and one is called West. You have to take the one that leads you to your check-in counters, meaning that if you arrive too early, on the main board, it won't say where you have to go. So don't arrive too early unless you know that the check-in counters, for instance, for Emirates are on the west side. So anyway, you don't need too much time. The queue sometimes to clear that security can be long, so take some time. Then you go to the counter, you do your usual thing, and then you have to go to immigration, which again can take a little bit of time. So be patient. And then you have the duty free. Duty free is what I will say 2 things. First, Lebanon has great wines, amazing wines.
Yes, they do. So they really do.
There's a section with wine. The guys there are very good at knowing their wine. So ask them. You can buy some, look, of course, at your regulation of your country, how much you can bring. But I've brought some. It's amazing wine. The price is really good. And you can also buy some local delicacies. It's very nice to the shop next door. So this is one thing. Then you have the lounges. Honestly, only the main one, which is called Cedar Lounge, which is also the Middle Eastern MEA, which is the local company. is worth it. The two others are just crap. So honestly, even if you have an invite, I'm not sure it's actually worth going. And then when you know your gate, again, you have to go through security. This is a more traditional security that we know in other airports that leads you to either the east or the west part of the gates. Again, sometimes might take some time. Take a look before to see how big is the queue. It's a bit slow sometimes. Other than that, it's not an airport that is honestly very beautiful. It's not an airport that is particularly efficient. It's very like in the middle. I mean, I complain sometimes because the queues are too long. So in that sense, it's not great. But it's still not a big airport, so it's okay, I guess.
Yeah, at best.
It's nothing right out of the ordinary, to be honest with you. And of course, don't be put off. You see a lot of military. You're in Lebanon after all, so you'll see your usual people with machine guns and everything. Well, that's for your own security, but it's true that it makes you feel a bit sometimes uneasy. We're not in a traditional part of the world there, but you know what? Beirut, for me, is probably my favorite city in the world. Is an amazing city.
Wow.
So go if you can go. There's a lot of things to see outside of the city, obviously, but Beirut itself is a fantastic city. So I encourage you to go. On that, Alex?
It's quite an endorsement.
Yeah, I really love it. I mean, not the airport, the city, obviously. Do you travel in these next few weeks or not?
No, next trip is Tokyo in January.
Yes, I might be going with you there. Yeah. Let's hope it works. I'll be in Geneva, so very uneventful trip, I hope so, to Geneva and back. And then we'll record what it will probably be our last episode of the year. So since I'm not going to see you until then, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to everybody. Enjoy. Don't drink too much.
And happy travels.
On behalf of Layovers and the entire crew, we would like to thank you for joining us on this podcast today. And we're looking forward to seeing you on board again next week. Flight attendants, please prepare for landing.